Hello, outstanding people. It is Thomas in New York. We are in Soho, Manhattan, visiting the former loft, apartment, home, whatever you want to call it, of Heath Ledger, who passed away, if I'm not mistaken, in 2008. Now, Heath Ledger, his former apartment is on Broom Street. If you're not familiar with where Broom Street is, it's actually, I guess, for lack of a different landmark to describe, it's actually on a hop and a skip away from the Holland Tunnel, which leads you into New Jersey. So, Heath Ledger, Australian-born actor, over 20 films. You might remember him from, Brokeback Mountain. Was the popular one that he had. But I remember him mostly from the Joker, Batman. Now, when I say Joker, Batman, I do mean The Dark Knight. And if you haven't seen Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, that's Christopher Nolan's 2008 film. I think it is probably, you hear people talk about it in Hollywood, that it's probably considered one of the greatest acting performances in cinema history. While it's considered that, a lot of people argue that that's kind of what maybe caused Heath Ledger, his demise, to tragically pass away at the age of 28. A lot of stars within that age die so young. It's at 27 actually. A lot of like Kurt Cobain. Also there was Amy Winehouse. All died that young. There were numerous other musicians as well. But looking at Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, he completely reimagined Batman's arch nemesis as a terrifying psychopath, agent of chaos, who is entirely devoid of any empathy. By the way, even after he died, and when The Dark Knight came out soon after, he was given an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, even though he was passed away, cementing a legacy that was, that fundamentally changed the comic book movie genre just by that performance that he had. To construct the character's unique identity, Ledger famously isolated himself. The whole hotel in isolation, where Ledger spent about 6 weeks locked away in a London hotel room to build the Joker's psychology, voice, and laugh from scratch. There was the Joker Diary, where he maintained a detailed, eerie scrapbook filled with disturbing images, comic clippings, chaotic notes to stay anchored in the character's mindset. Key inspirations: he drew physical, behavioral traits from Malcolm McDowell's character Alex in A Clockwork Orange, and all that disheveled punk rock energy of Sid Vicious played into that portrayal of the character. Now, Ledger, in this portrayal of the Joker, he introduced distinct, unsettling kind of quirks that differentiated his Joker from any previous, versions or viewings. Instead of permanently bleached skin, this version used sloppy, melting clown makeup over a gruesome kind of Glasgow smile scar pattern. He adopted a loose, fluid, almost animalistic posture. He famously added a constant, compulsive lip licking tic, which originally started as a practical way to keep his prosthetic scars glued down, believe it or not, as well as the voice, moving away from the standard comic book villain. Ledger kind of shifted between a high-pitched cackle and a gravelly, low-register growl. When Ledger was first cast, the internet and comic book fans, they heavily criticized the decision, doubting a quote-unquote teen heartthrob from films like 10 Things I Hate About You. How could someone like this play a gritty villain? Little did they know. Little did he know. Ledger's version shifted the standard for cinematic villains, proving that comical book adaptations, they could deliver profound, prestigious, psychological drama. That was certainly a performance that Heath made. While Heath Ledger initially did most of his intensive, isolated character development for the Joker in a London hotel room, his time living here in New York City became deeply intertwined with the character's legacy. Inside his Broom Street apartment that I'm gonna show you, that's where he spent his final months, surrounded by psychological remnants of the villain he had brought to life, his rendition. Now, Heath died in 2008 of January, and a lot of the details kind of emerged of how his living quarters, his house, essentially was a private research lab and a shrine to the Joker. There you see, this is the former apartment of Heath Ledger. He lived way up on top here, 421 Broom Street, Soho, Manhattan. Now, when law enforcement and investigators entered, it was a clean 400 square foot loft. That's when they discovered, the sheer depth of his ongoing devotion to the character of the Joker. His living quarters were meticulously organized with character research. You had the comic archive, and in that archive, it was extensive Batman comic books, source material, spanning all the way back to the character's earliest origins, referring to Batman. And he used, rather the Joker, and he used this to ensure kind of his version was entirely distinct from past versions of the Joker. Clown culture literature, deeply studied the history of clowns and performance art. Various books on the subject alongside small clown statues that were just completely scattered around the loft. So this guy was completely indulged in the character. Ledger was incredibly proud of the performance, and he frequently called it the most fun he had ever had acting. But unfortunately, the lingering psychological energy of the role followed him to, Manhattan. During his time in New York, Ledger battled chronic, exhausting sleep deprivation. He confessed to the New York Times in an interview conducted in the city that playing the schizophrenic clown with zero empathy and, quote, made it nearly impossible for his mind to shut down. He was constantly immersed in the character, it seems like. In the final weeks, while staying at this loft here on Broom Street, it was noted that he was physically exhausted. He was just trying to recover from a severe respiratory illness. And he was also filming his next project at the time. And unfortunately, his inability to sleep ultimately led to the tragic accidental prescription medicine overdose that unfortunately took his life at a very young age, 28. I think if you were to write a summary of paper on Heath Ledger here, you would say that Heath Ledger's time in New York City kind of showcased a perfectionist who had the utmost respect for his craft. The neat, curated research left behind in his Soho home proved that the Joker just wasn't that it wasn't just a role he played on a movie set, but a complex psychological puzzle he spent his final days trying to master. Brilliant character. Probably will go down in history as one of the best portrayals. One last look at Heath Ledger's final apartment here, loft. Located on Broom Street. Again, I'm not sure many people even know that Heath Ledger did live here many of years ago. Rest in peace to Heath Ledger. Thomas in New York, I must skedaddle, bidding you adieu.